to have a good discussion without, yeah.
Understood.
We're on. Excellent. Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the August 2nd, 2021 regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen. Our first item is our call to order. And I'll start with Todd tonight.
Todd Arshalashi.
Josh Kelly.
Candy Perez.
Sheila Sedlak.
Jack Bork.
Stephen Sedlak.
Linda Graffo.
And Candace and Melissa are excused for family matters.
Okay.
Okay. Please join me for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have agenda review, and Steve, what would you like to do?
Just move the agenda to, after approval of minutes, have discussion preliminary draft of the updated plan of conservation and development, and then immediately following that, the Winchester Police Department proposal for body cams.
Everybody okay with that? Okay. So we do that. Are there any other items? Okay, if not, we'll move on to approval of the minutes of the regular meeting on July 19th. May I have a motion to approve? Thank you, Linda. A second, please. Thank you, Steve. Anybody have any updates for Sheila on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Abstention.
And one abstention, so it'll be 4 in favor, 1 abstention. Okay, so we are going to move down to number 9A, discussion of the preliminary draft of the update of the plan and conservation and development. And tonight we have the planning and zoning chairman, George Clausen, here to talk to us about not only the draft, but our role in it, as well as the public's role in the public hearing coming up. And then if Josh has anything he would like to add into that, as our manager, we would certainly like to hear that as well.
Please.
Good evening. You know, you look at the Board of Selectmen, you look at this volunteer group, it's open payments, but thank you for your participation here to help us run this community in, I think, a very well-managed way. This POCD, first of all, Planning and Zoning Commission is responsible for putting this together, but it only can be put together with the input from everybody in the community that desires to participate. We had our last Plan of Conservation and Development was adopted on January 11, 2011. It's a 10-year plan, so within that 10 years, you're supposed to update it and then re-adopt it. With this COVID, it put us behind, so we are behind with it. We've given paperwork to the mayor and our town manager so that they can notify appropriate authorities that are in Hartford to let them know what's going on, not to jeopardize our possibility of getting grant funding and so forth, the programs that we have coming up. So with this draft, I don't know if everybody's board has been put out to everybody. I don't know whether just the cameras up here.
Yeah, we've gotten them
Okay, so
twice.
we've got the draft. It's on the town website as well, and we have a public hearing scheduled for this document on the 23rd of August. So hopefully the Board of Selectmen will review it and think about it and maybe take some action at your next meeting prior to our public hearing. And what we would like is hopefully you're going to give us a positive referral. If you don't, then it takes 2/3 of our commission to approve the draft and adopt it. So hopefully you'll be able to contribute in it. And again, if certainly as citizens as well as selectmen, you're certainly able to participate in our public hearing on the 23rd. We've got 10 chapters to this, which includes the introduction and the conclusion. The introduction states the purpose of the document. It's advisory in nature, not mandatory. It should be referred to by all the land use boards when they're making decisions with regards to applications, and hopefully it becomes that usable a document. The implementation obviously is rests with all the boards, the commissions, agencies, and individuals in town. During the last session, January of 11, we had a very lengthy part of the document that had a implementation chapter. And again, it's only as good as the people and commissions that take up and use the document implement it. So we didn't include it here because it's kind of self-explanatory, and we expect that, it's going to be of interest to utilize it. Chapter 2 provides a brief discussion of the history of Winchester and the current statistics with regards to housing, employment, school, population, etc. Chapter 3 is community views and visions, and this I was at a meeting last Thursday night that COG put on. It's their 5th Thursday meeting, which was very informative. They did a very well prepared presentation for us. I sent that along to Candy, the slides and so forth. One of the topics during that meeting was the need for fiber optics being expanded into our area, which usually does not happen without some extraordinary efforts, because we don't have the population per square mile that the cities have. And that's where it's being expanded, and the utilities are doing it out there. So there is an effort to expand it out here, and that terminology is not right now in the draft, but I'm going to recommend it when we go through the public hearing, since it's very important on our outlying areas to, if we can get this fiber optic, because as they described it, the copper lines, it's going to wear out here, capacity for the system, and we shouldn't be falling behind people who move out here and utilize the internet and so forth for doing business. Chapter 4 is a pretty much boilerplate, depicts the planning areas. Chapter 5 describes green print. Green print, again, two things. Terminology like green print needs an explanation. And one of the issues that came up last Thursday night, we talked about it at our commission meeting, you have terminology like character, and it could be used in the wrong way, arbitrarily, to prohibit people from moving into the area. So we want to make sure that our documents don't allow that. We define it. Green print in this chapter 5 is very specifically described, and I think it'd be interesting if you review it and think about it. And then if you have any comments, we'll be very happy to hear from you. Even before the public hearing, if you would like, you've got my email address, I believe, we could give you that and present it to our board and our commission. Chapter 6 is entitled Conservation. It's the largest chapter. I've lived been at my house that we're in about 51 years, so we kind of get used to the town a little bit. But one of the most important things to me, and the importance of the land use boards, is being a facilitator for growth and development that is along specific plans. But growth of the grand list is very important, and when we say conservation, our outlying rural areas have really experienced probably the largest growth in the last 10 years from the grand list standpoint. So it's definitely an important issue, one that needs to be protected. The other major thing that we need to be looking at, and what we've been trying to do with our commission and the wetlands as well, is protection of our watersheds. We've got a fantastic water supply for our community. Highland Lake for recreation, Park Pond, and Winchester Lake in the rivers and streams in the town should be all critically paid attention to with regards to land use and development. And this chapter really goes into that and explains an awful lot of what we've done and what's been done and the amount of land that's been historically preserved and maintained, which helps, I believe, why we're kind of an attractive community to be moving into. Chapter 7 is about the development part of this, and includes strategies for development, guidance by the Board of Selectmen could be really helpful there. A lot of times towns develop based on an applicant or a developer coming in and trying to react to the developer's desires. So if there's a position by the Board of Selectmen as far as an overall thought on development, for instance, there has been an emphasis on our mill buildings and trying to get those back in shape and utilized. So that kind of thing I think would really help to emphasize, even if it's been said before. Chapter 8 is about infrastructure. One of the things that I know we worked on this thing, this plan so many years ago. You know, we had the Yale group assisting us, and they did an evaluation because it's always been a conversation about parking in the downtown central business district. One of the things that did take place a number of years ago was to strike the parallel parking. And now that our whole Main Street has been resurfaced, it's not there. So we would recommend that, and it's in the recommendation in the document, to make a provision in your budget to strike these things so you really can get the count. It's like going down a Ledgebrook and not have that parking lot striped. You know, would be a complete mess. So that's one of the things that's in there. The other thing we've got is in there is the supporting sidewalk improvements for student walkers. It's not only student walkers, but now with the new school program that's going on, the reconstruction and so forth, it would be helpful with Pearson. We've got 2 downtown schools, so that would be something I know Bob had talked about, I think, working with some programs to try to get money in here for sidewalk work. Chapter 9 is entitled Plan Consistency. What we have to do with the plan is be in harmony with the state and the regional plans, and we have been, and that's also the requirement of when we submitted this, it went out to the COG so that it could be reviewed, and they would then give us a letter of compliance of where we're not in compliance. Chapter 10 is the conclusion. It's a brief portion of the document, but it also clearly states that, you know, this is one of the things about local control of our plan of conservation development, but also with our planning meetings. We put on our agenda for public input whenever somebody comes in. It wasn't always there, but we have it available on our agenda, as you do. And I think that's very, very valuable. So that's basically kind of in a nutshell, without reading the document, which would be a waste of everybody's time. But basically, if you have any questions, if you've had a chance to look at it, I'd be happy to try to answer them or look up the information for you. Yes, Steve?
George, does with all the new state laws that came in this year, was that like considered as part of this, or is it something that you have to like talk over the next couple weeks before you approve it?
Well, that's part of what's going on, because that's one of the things that I sent you. You've got a public act that the state has submitted, or have passed, and basically if we don't react and opt out of it, it becomes by right certain things in the document, so we lose our local control. There's a group that Sarah Bronin has started. She worked at UConn. Her husband's the mayor called it Desegregate Connecticut. And that is dealing with affordable housing. We have affordable housing plan that we're supposed to have completed also by June of 2022. When you look at actually the part of our document actually summarizes where we are with affordable housing and our rental stock and so forth. What we'd like to do, and actually it's in the document, we'd like to see a better mix of housing values for the center district area. And that's a conversation we'd all like to see, have ideas of how we can accomplish that, because we can't oppose it, but I think with the strengthening of our, I'd say, enforcement of our regulations and so forth. We've got a lot of out-of-state owners of rental properties that don't get maintained to the best level. And our part of our plan also suggests what could we do to get more owner-occupied, even multifamily. Because every multifamily that has an owner in that building historically is much better maintained and taken care of. So yes, it's an ongoing conversation, but definitely we're aware of it and we're trying to incorporate that.
Well, one of the things that's been coming out lately is all these investment firms that are buying up single and multifamily houses in communities, which is driving the prices up, because they're not making as much money on their usual retail shops and stuff, so now they've all entered into the housing market, which is putting out of reach for a lot of people.
It's true, it's true. Yeah, when you look at the website Zoom, they've got a whole division that's into acquiring real estate, so,
Right.
yeah.
Linda, you had a question?
Yeah, I did. There's a lot of information in this, and I did zero in on some of the, one of the agencies that I'm involved with, it's with the senior housing. Where did you get this information? Is it just information from 10 years ago? Because it's not correct.
Okay, some of it, we couldn't get a lot of updates from, Pam Colby has assembled the statistical part of these things for us. So if you have something
I
that you
do.
feel is a better
I do.
resource for it, please forward it to us.
To you or to?
To Pam,
to
and
Pam? Okay,
she'll bring it in as a draft.
okay,
Yeah,
I will
good
do
point,
that.
because I saw some things in
Yeah.
there too.
okay.
I met with our superintendents of schools, and with COVID and everything else and her other responsibilities in the school program, we didn't get as much from the education part of this either.
Okay.
But one of the things too is, the document says 10 years, but if we get better information, we can always update it. What that would require is, again, noticing everyone and then putting a public hearing together. But yeah, that's an easy thing to do.
Okay, I'll get the
But thank you
info.
very much.
Okay.
Anyone else?
George, your commission has had quite a lot of discussion about short-term rentals. Is there anything in the plan that addresses that, or anything you've done with your regs?
No, we set a subcommittee up and started looking at that with regards to some specific, I've done a project in Rockland, Maine, and that was a very big hotspot for the Airbnb type short-term rentals. And the gentleman I worked with who was in the land use business there in town, he had developed some regulations which were pretty involved, where we had our house in the Adirondacks, Lake Placid, big, vacation area. And they had just instituted a whole short-term rental program with registrations and so forth. So we had multiple meetings and, again, discussion, but we had one of the residents in town threaten to sue us if we did anything. Which, that's that, but, right now, it doesn't seem to be a problem, and so it didn't get in this document, but it's definitely something that's certainly, in the news, and it's happening more and more right now.
And a question for Josh, maybe. I don't know what your previous experiences have been with POCDs, but, you know, you heard George talk about getting input from the Board of Selectmen if we have any direction we want to give to the commission. Do you have any experience in that area, or do you have any thoughts at this point about how the selectmen might want to address that?
I do certainly have experience, not just from this side of things, but also from the commission side of things. On the Inland Wetlands and Conservation Commission in Waterford, I helped draft their most recent POCD. And what I would say is that what they have assembled right now is very broad and certainly as deep as any POCD that you might want to adopt. The question of how deep and detailed you would like a POCD to be is really up to you. And so any information from my perspective, at least in my experience, that you can provide to the Planning and Zoning Commission, I'm sure that they would be interested in adding it on and making this even more of a comprehensive document beyond what it already is. In terms of how you best express that, I think that anything you can, if you would all independently like to put that in writing, that's something that you could consider. I'm sure that George would be willing to accept some comments now, and then of course they have the public hearing. So I think any of those three avenues would be certainly acceptable. But I would say that in my experience, this is a very thorough POCD, one that you might find in any other town across the state, and that this is a very good cornerstone for all of the other projects and all of the other economic development conversations that we've been wanting to have. So I'm very thrilled about this. Certainly there's more that can be expanded on. Is there anything in particular that I can better answer for you?
No, that was,
Okay.
that was it, thank you.
Okay.
Jack, it looked like you were gonna say something.
George, I know you pointed out different chapters and a little bit of changes. Is it possible that to make it easier to completely understand what's the major changes in the last 10 years, like a particular page, a particular passage? When I looked at this, 'cause we had it in our email over the weekend, and I tried to look at the plan from 10 years ago and to see comparisons. I saw a lot of the same stuff, same wording, same, maybe even some of the same numbers. But I'm wondering, first of all, is it possible for you before August 23rd, that's the date that
That's
the
the public
planning and
hearing,
zoning is
yeah.
going to look at, and there'll be a more public discussion on this, to point out these are the 10 major changes that represent what the town has done over the last 10 years and what we envision over the next 10 years.
Okay.
Can you do that?
Sure. Most of it is in the accomplishments that you reflect with even some of the photography that's involved here. You know, like the health center on South Main Street.
Yeah, those are things that we see, but in this plan, this is a blueprint for going forward, correct? That's what it's used for. So when you sit as planning and zoning, making decisions, and those decisions should reflect, as you have said at many meetings, how does this decision about what we're doing in this zoning change reflect in the plan of conservation and development? So it is more than just a blueprint, but it's something that you want to follow.
Right, but it's a general plan, Jack. It doesn't mean we've got specifics about. What we've done is, for instance, when we redid our zoning regulations as a reaction to the previous plan of conservation and development, we went from like 23 zones to 8.
Right. I know.
We look at the focal point for potential development, like our 800 corridor, the Route 44. We describe those as our gateway zones. And so that's the big emphasis that we did back then, which we basically, we don't look to have to change that because it's fit what we saw back, 10 or 11 years ago. So there are no major changes here because we've accomplished a number of things structurally that we saw was really a weak area, because our zoning regulations really came back in the early 50s and they've been modified like a postage stamp, a little here, a little there, and a lot of times there's a conflict in there because it wasn't a comprehensive review, and that's what we did. We got the people from the
Yeah,
there isn't any major things.
So,
Because they were all redone, and there were consultants involved, and
That's right.
everybody was,
That's
because
all.
everything was so old, and even the plan of conservation and development at that time also had, I believe, grant money as well, and other expenditure and professional help to draft it, right?
We had a group out of New Haven that was in the initial start of that previous one. I think there was a $50,000 grant that was paid for those fees. And then we had a very comprehensive series of meetings and participants, a very large group of people who contributed, and everybody contributed to it, and then we got planometrics to actually put it into a flow, so it wasn't everybody's, way to write and so forth. It was like a consistently drafted document. So that's what we did back then, so which was a pretty comprehensive one. So this one doesn't do any real major, because we think we're on the right path from that. So it basically ensures that we continue that way, but I'd be happy to go through it. And pull-
well, like, you did mention a couple things that I just picked up on. Painting of the stripes on Main Street. That's not really the town's responsibility, parking spot.
Oh, is it?
I don't think. I
Yeah,
think
well,
that's,
I disagree with
Well, we
you.
just found out that it is.
oh, it is? Not the
Oh, it is.
state's responsibility to,
The state is deferred to us.
all righty.
We feel it's a little bit in our best interest to make sure when our merchants are gonna thrive better if we've got parking, because there's always been a complaint that they're not enough parking.
I'm with you on that, I understand. You were just mentioning, and I thought, isn't that the state's responsibility? I want to question you on page 3.1, and it was on 3.1 where community views and vision. Again, these words look like what happened 11 years ago in the same plan. So when you get these community views and visions, and I'm just wondering, did all of this come from just 10 years ago, the plan, or has any of this been picked up by any public hearings that you've had outside of the few people who show up at planning and zoning
I'll
commission?
be honest with you, when we get ideas and so forth, I don't mark down who it came from, what date we
Or how long
received
ago
it.
it was?
Yeah. You absorb these things and then you try to write it in a way that you're gonna flow. A lot of this came out of our last, our vision.
Right, my only question is, okay, this is what we saw 10 years ago, that we're keeping the same thing, there's no major change in the vision here, it's just a continuation of that.
I think
Is that a good way of saying that?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think we've seen what you folks have done here with the stability and, oversight and the role you play in the community has been a big contributor to even keel we've seen. And when we got rid of the thief in the county department, we
Well, so
made a
many
lot of
times
progress.
you go down to the library and you see these plans are down there all the time.
Yeah.
Does anybody ever look at them after they've been approved?
That's my point. We would like to see them, referred to as far as what the general feeling is in this. The part of it is in this, in the green print part of it, so you're understanding what that means with regards to conservation and development, so you can mate it, and not just come in and like clear cut a property and destroy some of the beautiful countryside that we have, or destroy our ridge lines. Ridge lines are all in this as well. You can't clear cut to a ridge point. We talked about, vision points from downtown in your core business district and your next level out, which is your town center residential. These are things that I think, when I look at real estate, that draws people, that they enjoy this part of the state and our part of the country. So a lot of that's not gonna ever change in my mind, at least not while I'm sitting here. People we have with the commission seem to be in tune with that, because it's valuable, and it has proven to be valuable to people coming into the community.
I get all that, I'm just trying to not have an adoption and an effective figure later this month, and then this whole thing gets put on the shelf and,
Well, that takes your participation and everybody else.
well, and everybody else's,
See,
especially the
exactly.
Planning and Zoning Commission, the Zoning Board of Appeals, to just make sure whatever is decided is
See,
following
these-
this plan.
these are not specific regulations that you enforce. They're concepts that people will interpret and say, okay, this will help, promote that vision. But there's nothing enforceable from this. This is just advisory. Just like when you have something and it sends it to planning and zoning for an 824 referral, all we do is we support it or we don't. It's up to you. You can say, we're not paying any attention to you guys. It's something we're gonna do anyways. That's what that means. It's advisory. So, but we would hope, it's like everything else. If you have something that's affecting you in your neighborhood, in your property, it gets your attention, you participate. When it does, when there's something that's not, that's in the next neighborhood or across town, and you're working and supporting your family, you may not get involved with it because this doesn't affect you directly. So we would hope, we did I think there was over 100 steps of implementation that was in our, if you just looked at our previous, you saw it was, we went through and spent a lot of time and tried to identify the agency or the group that should be doing something with regards to implementing things that we put in there. And we did, we pushed it for a while. When you bring it out of gas, you can't push people beyond, because everybody's got their own, things they do. But good point. I mean, that's what our frustration is let's use it.
All right, fair enough, thank you.
Anyone else? So the process from here is if anybody has any updates they want, like if you think some of the points that they have written there and the vision or everything, you think there should be something added, something taken away, you could talk to George, you could also talk to Josh about it. The public, most importantly, can come on August 23rd. The public can also contact town manager, head of planning and zoning anytime before that as well. If people want a paragraph written a different way, they could do that, bullet point, something to be added. The only thing I would say is that I hope that we can get the data that's in there as accurate as possible and as up-to-date as possible. Like, I think, I'm not sure when the census data comes out, but that should be out before this is finalized, I would think, some of it anyway.
Yes, so if you have, a resource with regards to the data on that chapter, and you could provide it to us,
Absolutely.
that'd be excellent. Sometimes it's hard to get a hold of that stuff.
Yep.
And, again, it can mean an awful lot as far as how we actually are fulfilling our requirements as far as, affordable housing and, that type of thing. But please, I think everybody's got my email.
Yep.
And, every time I get an email, I put it on to every one of our commissioners, so they're all aware of everything.
You be making any updates to this before we meet
I'm not
again on
gonna
the 16th?
change anything that's here.
Right.
We'll-
So the board for procedures, if we want to endorse this on the 16th, what I would suggest that you have ready is, if there are things that you want to be added or changed, we would do an endorsement based on the following items or the following things, or we endorse the overall plan, but we would like the commission to look at these things. So that on the 16th, we can do something like that, as, you wanted us to have an opinion before your meeting.
So that square can be checked off and we know that.
Right. So this is also a state requirement for the plan, right? That the,
Yes, it is. And,
Oversight.
again, if individually you wanted to come in on the 23rd as citizens of the town, that's part of why we have that public hearing. So, it's not like the end of the road if you say, well, we endorse it, but we have some other comments, bring them to us, and we can bring that up on our, public hearing on the 23rd, please.
okay, all set, everyone?
Thank you,
Okay.
George.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have moved, under new business 9E, the consideration of the Winchester Police Department proposal for body camera acquisition. So you want to join us, feel free. And also, Josh, if you could tell us why this is before us right now, so that the public understands.
Absolutely. So, last year in 2020, we, as a state, there was a bill that was introduced into the State House, and it was ultimately adopted and is now enacted, that requires all police departments by July 1st, 2022, to have in their possession and to be utilizing body cameras and dash cameras. So there's quite an extensive amount of legalese around the requirements for this. I know that the chief and officer that we have here tonight, Officer Blass, have done an amazing amount of research into the requirements surrounding all of this legislation, and of course the different opportunities and options that we have at our fingertips as we look to follow this somewhat, I should say, partially funded state mandate. And certainly we'll talk about the funding component as we go along tonight. But with that, I'd like to turn it over and hear a little bit more from the Chief and Officer Blass.
Good evening, everyone. Again, thank you, Mayor Perez, and members of the Board of Selectmen for this opportunity to provide information that the state of Connecticut has mandated to all police departments in the state by enacting Public Act number 20-1, an act concerning police accountability, House Bill 6004. All officers are to be equipped with body cameras and vehicle dash cameras by July of 2022. Several months ago, we began researching into what systems that were in the market and determining the best price, warranties, cloud space needed, and functionality. I assigned Officer Joshua Blass, who is here this evening next to me, was tasked with this research along with the assistance of other officers. After several months of research, testing different models, a final recommendation was presented to a panel that included Town Manager Josh Kelly, Finance Director Bruce Stafford, Town IT Mark Douglas, Sergeant Kinningham, and myself. The final analysis presented a clear and convincing of moving forward with Axon Vatican 3 and Fleet Dash Cam 3 outperform all other models. Some of the benefits were for body cams were clear evidence and picture quality, real-time access, live GPS evidence and positioning, live streaming, and we'll get into what that means, interoperability with other police departments. Also, this product is also recommended by the State's Attorney's Office in its use of clarity. There's also redaction software that's included with this company, and also 46 other Connecticut police departments are currently using Axon body cameras. It includes free training on its use to all officers. For the dash cams, operates the same system for seamless operability. It has license plate readers. We currently only have 2 license plate readers with an annual cost of $5,000 to maintain them, which we will save in future cost. No other dash cams have these capabilities. Also real-time access, also live streaming. Also with this company, body cams will be replaced at 2.5 years at no cost to the town. Also the dash cams will be replaced in year 5. I'm also planning on having our evidence officer maintain and manage the system, as we have certain requirements that we need to have instituted in our post-model policy on the system, as to all video feeds are considered to be evidence, and requirement to purge if not of evidentiary value. If approved to move forward, we will completely be operational well before the mandated law to implement. We also have included for your review reference materials, specific details on the police accountability law, and all the information on the recommended body cameras and dash cams. I have Officer Blass here this evening to answer any questions that the Board of Selectmen might have on this research and on the system. Cut to the chase.
So Officer Blass, do you want to tell us a little bit about it from your perspective as an officer on the street.
So with Axon, before that, so he's speaking loudly on the street. So Axon, Chief pretty much touched all the good points on this. Being on the street with the body camera, with the picture quality, that's important because if you have 1080p as a resolution and you're reviewing the video footage and you want to know why the officer did what he did for a use of force, that little bit of a pixel or that blur means a whole lot of difference, whether it comes down to a lawsuit, excessive use of force, or if the officer used reasonable force. So going from 1080p to where we looked at some other companies, it was like 720p, that's a big difference. One of the companies I tried out with, I did running with, I did shooting down at the range, and then I tried tried Axon, and the quality was much better. It was smooth. It wasn't jumping around when I was running, when the officer was running through with it, and the sound quality was a lot better.
So I always think of like, it also protects you guys, right, as well? I mean,
Right.
having these cameras so nobody can say you didn't do something you weren't supposed to do, or you did something, right? So it does protect all of you, the dash cams and the body cameras. I hope also give you all some safety as well.
Yeah, so, as Chief mentioned with the live streaming, so what can happen is, if the camera's actively, if the camera's like recorded and you're on a call, that the chief can view, the sergeant can view while we're on scene. So, as an example, what happened was I had Officer Walter and Officer Cummings down at the range shooting with the cameras on, and I was up in Massachusetts. I logged into evidence.com and I was able to live view what was going on. So there was a little bit of transparency while it was going on for officer safety. As you already touched based on the whole, protecting us from any false claims, that helps a lot too. And, speaking with other departments, that's helped them and, basically not squashing, but basically saying that there is no foul play, there's no excessive use of force, this officer didn't act unreasonable, and using that body cam footage helps them in that case.
Do these cameras, because of, our hills and antennas and sometimes we lose our phone connections, will these cameras that you have, will they stay connected everywhere in town?
Yes.
Like your regular radios?
Yeah. No, they're not on the radio system.
But they're,
So with the body cam, so dash cameras, they're gonna run on either a Wi-Fi system or they can run on, I think it's called MiFi, or it's like a 4G LTE USB plug that's plugged into the computer inside the cruiser, the MBT, and that in itself is the access for the internet for the dash cam to access. And the dash cam, or the body cam itself, it's connected through almost like a Wi-Fi system.
It goes to a cloud.
yeah.
Also, a good point of having these body cams also, it also provides the officers to get statements
Yeah.
without having to inscribe them downstairs and have them bring the person in. And also too, we have a very stringent use of force policy and officer use of force review. And this would also assist us in training as well, especially if there were some things that were questionable that needs to be addressed on training issues. We can also be able to do that as well. So there's a lot of benefits for this company. And the live streaming is another in GPS positioning as well. We can do evidence this way as well, especially with a car accident or fatal. We can GPS position by those body cams and from the car dash camera. Also too, the license plate readers, and also a major addition to this system. Other companies do not provide the LPR or license plate readers. Now, we use these license plate readers quite extensively. I know Officer Blast does quite a bit of it. Now every car, rather than just 2 vehicles, we can, kind of get rid of the models that we have, which cost over $30,000 at the time. We got them on grants. Now they'll be part of this whole fixture. So hopefully we'll be saving money on that end as well. We won't have to be paying because it's all part of this program.
So, Todd, I know that, I think you and Melissa met.
Yes.
With the chief, so anything you'd like to add in here?
Josh, thank you for your hard work on this. Some of the other things that Chief didn't mention, which I think are great safeguards for the community, that the board should know. When officers are within 30 feet, is it 30 feet of each other?
Yeah, 30.
Both officers' cameras record, so they're not turning them on and off, manually. And the warranty of the equipment is very important. And this is a full warranty, right?
Yes.
For 5 years, so that should take care of any wear and tear that the officers may put and strain on the devices. I think, although the state is forcing this upon us, for officer safety and the police accountability bill, I think it's in the officers' best interests to have the best system that they can operate on. And as Josh said, they tried out some of the different companies, and this was by far the best working equipment. And that's what we want. We want to have the best that is available.
Anybody else on there? Jack?
Chief, could you just explain, you're looking at purchasing 25 cameras to start with, and you might have, 5, 6 officers on duty at any one shift.
Right.
So why the extras, and why
There's
can't,
no there is some extras for breakdowns, but every officer has its own body cam.
everyone has its own?
Yes, they're issued their own. So we're identifiable by the camera that that's that officer. We have extra body cams such as for detectives, and also if things broke down, we can use those other cameras. They also have a good warranty that they would replace that camera very
Yeah,
quickly. So, what I also like too about this is about the warranty and the wear and tear. We don't have to worry about replacing these cameras because they're automatically replaced in 2.5 years. So that is a good thing because that would be an added cost to the town. If we had to keep them, for fixing them and they wear out, they have a very short shelf life. And plus, they have to be charged at all times. So there's different charging methods. I know Josh can get into that, but that officers that work double shifts or road jobs, they will be required to wear that. We have a special policy that we issued on this. That's a model policy from the state that we will institute when these body cameras go there. We would, by policy, we would keep all not evidentiary value feeds for only 90 days. Then they'll be deleted from the system. Anything with evidence value to it will be kept for at least 5 years or more, unless the case has been disposed in court. That will be just in case if somebody wanted to do a civil action against any particular officer, we would have the evidence there. And what's good is there's multiple cameras that can be used. Then we can also be live streaming and seeing what the officers are doing. So that's an added accountability to a lot of things. There's for supervisors to see what kind of call that's going on, especially injuries we can document. The officers too, before they sit at the typewriter to write the reports, they can review the camera at the same time. So some things, and also Dawn Gallo, the state's attorney's office, can't say enough about the quality and how we can easily send that evidence to her office. by the system.
When the officer's off duty, is the camera left downstairs, or does he
Yes.
take that home?
No, they don't take it.
Everything is left in the station.
Correct.
I noticed
It's
that,
gonna be charged, always gonna be on the charging system, and every camera that's, including the in-car dash cameras, are automatically uploaded when they're close to the police department, it's automatically uploaded to the cloud. So they don't have to go, oh geez, I have to load it up, it's automatic.
okay, and I noticed that the service charge, you got a deal on the service charge based upon, the first year contract is 12 or almost 13, but then you say there's a reduction or
Yes,
the cost of the second and third year for servicing.
yes.
Okay, that's all included in here as it's been recommended. Okay, and the final thing, when the dashboard cameras are used, are they turned on automatically, or do they go on by the officer in the car?
We can trigger, like, we had a couple of dash cams we were testing out, and they would automatically go on certain criterias that I have made. One was anything over 60 miles an hour in the cruiser would automatically go on. Why did it go on? Why they going 60 miles an hour? The other thing was anytime that the overhead lights are activated, the camera's on. They can't shut it off.
Okay, that's for the dash cameras. The body cameras, do they have to be turned on, or,
So.
Would you explain that again?
A little bit more on the fleet.
I'm sorry?
I'm gonna explain a little bit more about the dash cameras, and then it's also gonna be with the
Fine.
body cameras as well. So, as Todd already said about the whole 30 to 50 feet, that's one trigger for a body camera. So, let's say I'm on scene, my body camera's recording, chief shows up, his body camera's on, but he forgot to hit record, his body camera's gonna start recording, because that's one of the triggers we put in place. The dash cameras, what you can have is you can have set up with, lights, you can have it set up, you can pull the gun, like, the rifle or the shotgun out.
That's right.
You can have it set up if, you have a canine, we don't at the time, but, we did back then. You can have it set up for if you open up the prisoner door, so if you put the prisoner back, so that way you can automatically, it just starts recording, so in case they're acting up, it's already getting picked up on the video. You can have it set up if there's a crash, on the cruiser, it'll automatically turn on.
Taser.
You can have it set up with the body camera to link, and, because we have Axon tasers right now, so Axon tasers, we would get this sensor attached to our holster, so when we draw our taser, it will start automatically recording. We can also have it set up for our sidearm as well. We can have a special setup for that. The way the body cameras would be set up for, I believe, I haven't really looked too much into the policy because it's not a final thing yet, but with the start of the shift, based on other departments, the start of the shift, the body camera gets turned on, but it's not recording. So, start the shift, it's recording. When you get out of the cruiser and you're interacting with community, you hit record, it's a center button, tap it once or twice, and then after that, it just starts recording. So, after that, you just turn it off, you stop the recording part, but anything 30 seconds before you hit that button, it recorded. It retained that video footage. It's not sound, but it's video footage. And we could change that, but right now, the way I believe the policy's written is 30 seconds. So those are some triggers, and there's a few other triggers. I believe it's in the summary that I gave as part of the packet, which touches base on what the triggers were.
well, thank you for explaining them. Appreciate that. Final question. The grant, we're sure that the 50%, $20,000, $28,893, that's guaranteed. That's not questionable, it's guaranteed.
We are considered a distressed city. Other than that, if we weren't, we were paying 30%, but with 50% being a distressed community.
Guaranteed, we're gonna get that, there's no question, no matter what. Okay.
And that is written into the police accountability law
Yeah.
itself. It is
That's-
required.
I'm sorry?
It's written into the police accountability law itself that this reimbursement be given to towns as they
Fair enough.
adopt.
Okay.
Anyone else down there?
Thank you for the presentation. is it a package deal? In other words, we can't split dash cams if we felt this company had superior dash cams, but this company had better body cams?
It wouldn't be interoperability wise. You know, it's like,
So it really is a package.
right.
Yeah, okay, good. The ability of the officer to override the recording,
No, it can't.
doesn't, okay?
There's only certain permissions, and the only permissions to do anything would be me or the property evidence manager, but he would have limited access to it. It's just to control steps that by policy, you know, if it's not evidentiary value, it gets, you know, purged after 90 days by policy. Anything else of evidentiary value is kept for at least 5 years. Unless it's disposed of, you know, but
Do you have to do any renegotiation of the police contract?
no.
Not necessary. Do you anticipate additional personnel might be needed down the road to maintain this? It sounds like a lot of work for
We,
extra work.
I am really, to tell you the truth, I'm not sure yet. That's why we wanted to move forward now, to get all the kinks and do our research to whether or not a part-time person can do it, or do we have to make it a full-time position? Or just add a couple hours to his shift? I really don't know, and that has to be, I have to look at that to make a sound decision before I start recommending anything to the town manager about that. I'm not comfortable saying I should have a full-time person. I look at the total amount of calls that we have and how many cases that we prosecute or have problems. We were big concerned about cloud storage was a major issue, and that's a big cost to our police departments. And I know, Josh, that was one of the main points I wanted him to research with other police departments, similar size of what storage capabilities they were having. And we should have plenty of space compared to other size communities as well as us. So I'm confident about the cloud space. I just don't know about the management to it yet. You know, and I think it's gonna be a trial and error type of thing. I think as soon as we start the process, we'll be able to get a good handle whether or not, maybe it's just an hour extra a week. There's not much too heavy lifting out of all of this, really. The other thing is too, we're saving money on redaction software. Redaction is already included in this proposal. So he has to learn how to redact and be able to send evidence, discovery to the different attorneys. So that's the only uncertainty right now out of this. But I'm sure we'll be able to figure it out as we get going.
And finally, is there any sense of urgency to get, I know you want the training to begin.
It's gonna be a large process. First of all, is the install of all the in cameras, in-dash cameras and all the cruisers. That's gonna take time. Every officer has to be trained in this, including all personnel, has to be trained in it. And then seeing about the storage and the management of the thing. So it's gonna take some time. And I'm glad that we're able to get ahead of this rather than coming to you, before July of 2022, that we have plenty of time to research this out, give a plan to you guys, and, come up with the best plan and how we can move forward with this.
Thanks.
2022 isn't that far away.
No,
Linda,
but
do you have anything?
No, I'm all
Hi.
set.
I have a follow-up question. I think you mentioned interoperability with, a lot of times you guys get on and Josh, you might know this, you get on an issue that's right on the town line, Torrington comes in, or the state police are there. Are these cameras going to be interoperable with
Well,
state police in Torrington?
state police, no. Torrington, yes.
Ah,
Like I said, there's 46, 47 towns that have the Axon. I have no idea why state police went to Panasonic. They having a lot of issues with those. So we kind of like didn't want to get involved with the Panasonic, problems with it they had.
okay.
But the interoperability with the state's attorneys, with, other police departments, especially in the west district, pretty much have.
And Torrington, you said has the same?
Yes. Matter of fact, also Blas interviewed quite a bit of officers in Torrington on the.
Do they already have this system?
Yes, they have the body cams. They do not have the dash cams as of right now yet, but body cam they do.
I don't think they have the newer model that we're getting.
Body three.
Yeah,
I think they're in the process.
Yeah.
Last time I heard.
All right.
So what we're looking here, Josh, for is what, the bid waiver for this, and do we have to act on allowing for body cameras, or just the bid waiver to pay for them?
No, as long as you're all of a mind to go forward with this proposal, we are seeking a bid waiver, a motion to waive bid requirements for the acquisition of body cams, given the fact that the police department has shown a keen interest in engaging Axon for those services.
So our bid waiver is going to be because it provides you with the most complete package to allow you to do your job to at the best level possible, and affords police officers the most protection as well as the community, correct? Okay. So may I have a motion to approve the bid waiver for the Axon Bright and Digital Ally equipment?
I'll make it.
Thank you, Jack, for the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, but I'll just point out that shouldn't we be approving the proposal first of all and then waiving the bid?
I just asked Josh that. So he said to approve the bid.
Oh, okay,
But-
I'm sorry I didn't
So, I
catch
mean,
that.
we could do both.
Nope,
If you want to cover yourself, certainly there's no harm in doing both. The thing that I need to have in order for us to move forward with the proposal is really the bid waiver.
Well, I was just wondering, why would we, as a Board of Selectmen, need to approve the use of them? I understand we have to approve a bid waiver, but isn't the decision to use them yours and the chief's?
Effectively, yes, and also our hands are tied by the state law and requirements
So
here.
we don't really need to approve
so-
the use of them.
Right, for anybody looking at the recommended motion on here, this was crafted before the bid waiver was crafted, so I believe that a bid waiver is the proper path forward in this case.
I'll
Okay, so
second
we have
that.
second? No?
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments? Todd, anything else you'd like to throw out?
Did you want to touch on the extra storage if it was needed?
Yeah, if, according to Axon, if we needed extra storage in the cloud, they would provide that free of charge. So it wouldn't cost the town anything for that.
So one thing, just maybe when you get them and you're up and running, will you do a demonstration for the public?
Yeah, we can do that.
I'm just, because of what Todd just asked about, and
Yeah,
it just triggered my thought that,
We can, however we want to do it, we can do it at a selectmen meeting.
I'll call you for the fox that comes by my house, the bear,
No
and
problem. We can live stream.
you can live stream me with my, we do have one. All right, so anything else?
Did we vote on that?
No, I'm gonna ask in a minute. I'm all ready. Here we go. Ready? All in favor? It's unanimous. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for being thorough with all this. We appreciate the research on it. Okay. Good luck with them.
You did a good job on this.
I do have video footage if you guys want to see.
Do I wanna see? I just wanna see
It's
this.
just of officers running with it, shooting with it, that's all.
Okay,
If you guys want to see it, I got it right here.
okay,
Is
okay.
is that a West Coast-based company, Axon?
I don't know where exactly.
It's Ohio. I just know that from the area code on their phone number, but it's Ohio.
Chief, you
I
wanna
don't
just
trust
hang out
area
for a minute?
codes anymore. There's
I'm
no
gonna
sense.
go-
No, it is
I'm gonna go backwards at the same time here. John, do you have any comments right now? I'll ask you again, too. Okay. All right, so, let's move on to new business B, to considering and possibly acting on the amendments to ordinance number 43, operation of watercraft at Highland Lake regulated. Before we start talking about this ordinance, I'd just like to say that there's nothing that's going to change in terms of the boats and regulations addressed in the ordinance. It's just going to be, wording's gonna be changed because the chief is requesting this to make sure that he has the most tools possible to make his job more, the clarity out on the water. Also, DEP also has to look at what we do as well, in contact with them. So, Chief, you wanna just say why you're asking us for these amendments? And then we could,
Yes, we, been reviewing the practice of the marine patrol and trying to do it in the most effective way. And we've had numerous meetings with the marine patrol officers and also with Highland Lake Association as well. And one of the bigger complaints was not enough tickets were being issued out on the water. And, you know, there was a lot of verbal, you know, warnings being given, and we wanted to kind of streamline that down so that, that violators would retract who were given previous warnings, and then after that, be able to give a ticket. So we kind of updated our database on the Marine Patrol boat of who was given warnings, et cetera. And one of the comments that the officers were talking about was that two things. One was the fines were very high, you know, for people like for minor violations. They didn't think it was prudent, you know, to give those kind of tickets out. So one of them suggested that we kind of similarly do like this, plus to the amount of information on a summons was so great that rocking in that boat was difficult to write the ticket. So we're trying to look at ways how we can improve effectiveness of the enforcement action by doing it similar to like a parking ticket. And to make all the boating laws an ordinance violation. We're not creating something new, but also too, the funds that we collect do not go to the state, this goes to our funds, to the general fund. So my recommendation is to create a ticket book that the officers could just write the name of the person, the boat, and be able to check off the violation that they violated, either $25 to $30 ticket, which seems to be more reasonable. Again, we want to try in the beginning, when I first got here, is the educational component. But then it started to get kind of out of hand after last year, is that we saw more out-of-towners. We talked to the Highland Lake, and they put signs up there about the rules. And so we wanted to make something that we could, you know, have some kind of teeth to it. And that's why we recommended, you know, to the town manager, is to have that incorporated into the ordinance.
right, so there's, I'll have Josh talk about the things in our packet, because we got double copies. But one of the things that I think it's important to understand is there are some regulations that are Winstead specific, and there are some regulations that are statewide on any lake. The distance from shore, 100 feet for a regular boat and 200 feet for the jet skis, wave runners, is 200 feet. Those are state regulations on any lake, which means that you will still need to continue to do, according to the DEP person that I was emailing back and forth with, will still need to continue to do through DEEP. The ordinances on Highland Lake, the size of the boats, the speed limit, the Sunday night quiet hours, you know, from 5 o'clock on, will be things that we probably can go to local citations on. So you're still gonna sort of be stuck, if I read and understood the deep personnel's comments on this. So when we go into the ordinance and we're updating the language, and Josh has worked with the chief on putting in new definitions and whatnot, there's still the 5 basic regulations that are on that yellow and red board at the boat launch, and that are in the current ordinance will still continue, and the enforcement will still have to continue unless DEEP gives us some sort of dispensation not to do the distance from shore. So we'll have to look at that.
Well, I have an issue with that, Mayor. I mean, are they gonna be out there enforcing this?
Well, when I wrote to them, I also asked them to come up and help. Because I think it's a distance from shore thing that we've all witnessed. That is the biggest issue up there. But anyway, so Josh, you want to talk about that? Because we'll have to send it to them anyway, so.
Absolutely. Well, first I'll talk about the 3 different components of this that you're going to find in your packet. And you'll see there are 3 different documents that start with Section 43, Operation of Watercraft at Highland Lake Regulated. The first one that you're going to see that runs from A to G and is not full page is the original. That is what is currently enacted by the Board of Selectmen. The second document that you'll see, which is 3 pages long, is a redlined copy of the additions that have been made, additions, retractions in a couple cases, very few, if any, actually. And the last page, or the last set of pages that you're going to see is a non-redlined revised version. So that's just if you want to see the revisions in a clear, not read and underlined manner. So that's just for your own ease of access if you should want it. Certainly I can read through each part of this, and perhaps it might even be wise for us to read the entirety of the revised ordinance. But I will say that just giving you an overview of some of the major changes between the original and the revised version of this ordinance. First and foremost, there are definitions. That's something that did not exist before any such revision that does not currently exist. There are also more references to more state regulations to make sure that there's clarity for anybody. As we continue to work on education, we need to make sure that people have a ready resource to have a better understanding of the regulations that they are required to follow, whether they're here at Highland Lake or elsewhere around the state, or even in federal waters in some cases. So I think that it's important, and just to touch on that for a second, I think it's important not only to have references to the various state regulations that we're citing, but I think it's also important, regardless of whether the chief is going to end up having to use state forms to enforce some of these measures, or local forms, to make sure that we have as much of this present in our local ordinances, so that if somebody goes to the website and somebody says, I am going to Highland Lake today, I don't want to get pulled over again because I did something wrong last time, I'm going to go through and look. Even if they are state regulations, and even if the state says we are required to use those forms, at least they have a one-stop shop where they can go and say, this is really what my expectations are while I'm out on the water. So continuing on from there, as you'll see, anything beyond G in this redlined version is an addition. So there are a few short items, like I said, mostly references to general statutes and regulations and so forth. And there's also an addition under the new section D, which was the former section C, requiring that any vessel on the waters of Highland Lake during said hours shall be equipped with lighting sufficient to allow other vessels to see them and avoid collisions. That's a safety measure, very much based off of state regulation. And all of these are being put into place really for the safety and security of everybody who's participating. So, like I said, I can read through each of these if you would like. Some of them touch on not just how one should conduct themselves in a boat, but how one should conduct themselves as they participate in water sports. Boating sports in particular has been added as a definition, and boating sports is referenced a couple of times throughout this document. and that includes water skiing, wakeboarding, wake surfing, tubing, and other related activities. And at the tail end of this updated ordinance, we do have an updated schedule of fees. So it very clearly states to everybody what they can expect in the event that they fail to meet the requirements that are set forth by these regulations. Of course, as Candy said, there are a number of these that will be subject to the state in the event that the state is requiring us still to file their form instead of a local form. But I also believe that this is a quick summary of the, again, expectations that individuals can have of why they may be pulled over by the police boat and why they may have the police even called on them while they're on Highland Lake. And I think that's important to note. Are there any specific lines that you'd like me to read
Yeah,
or?
The fees, are these fees current, what they currently get?
No, everything now is with the state.
I know, but are the fees that you have in here the same as what they would be for the state? Like if over here,
Yes, they're basically the same.
so they would get a ticket for that amount
Yeah.
now? I think one of the things the state wants to make sure is that that somebody doesn't get fined twice. They were concerned that if we find them under our citation, that they couldn't get fined for that same offense under the state citations.
No, they'll be only cited once.
Right.
If it's by local ordinance, then we cite by local ordinance. If we have to do it by state, then we do it by state ordinance.
Very good.
Candy, at our last meeting, you had said something that I never knew about, but you had told us that anybody could rent a boat without a license.
Yes,
That's still,
unfortunately, yes, it's still true.
okay, because I'm reading section M. No person should operate the waters of Highland Lake unless a person has a valid vessel operator's license.
Correct. So those of us that are around a lot have to have a license, and people that just came up to the lake, and this is on the shoreline too, it's on any lake in Connecticut, it's all the shorelines, it's not particular to us, makes no sense to me. When you think about what you're about to do with people out on the boats, and they don't have to have a license, because the boating industry, I believe it's the boating industry that, when I talked to Jay about this last year, the year before, and I go, what, nobody has to have a license if you rent? And he said it was the boating industry because of the people trying out boats and making sure that there was people that were supporting the economies, especially on the shore. Maybe not so much on small lakes, but on the shore. So Josh has had conversation, I've had conversation with Josh. He probably had a conversation with the chief about making sure the marina and maybe some days down at the boat launch that there's some,
That
We do
follows
what
with
call-
N.
you want to call it education, or you want to call it, preventative officiating. Hey,
Like
these are,
training,
yeah. So I'm assuming that when they rent a boat, they do tell them some things, I'm assuming. But there's a big yellow sign down at the boat launch with big bright yellow red. Doesn't like blend into any background with regulations there too. But, most people do the right things. Most people are doing the right things. It's just, there's just a few of them that, I think the biggest thing most people worry about is at their docks and people coming too close at a high rate of speed. Because people are trying to swim and play in the water, and here comes somebody really fast by the dock. Because our speed limit on the lake is 45 miles an hour. But I never, in my time, have experienced a problem with that, That gets in the way of things. I mean, I'm not there all the time either. Like right now, I'm here, so.
Well, isn't it going to be pretty hard to enforce any of these ordinances unless you have a boat on the lake at all times?
True. I mean, yeah, true. We're coming up with some other plans. I'm discussions now with the town manager of improving our presence on the water. But this is one start of, the tools that we need out there. That easier for officers, to take citations. And also, more use of lake recently we're seeing that unfortunately we have to talk about these issues that, you know, coming up. Before, there wasn't a real big issue. Now it's starting to be widely used, and we gotta get some kind of control up there in the toolbox.
You know how we have the speed limit signs on the road? Do you have any of those situated near the Narrows?
I don't think we can put anything on the water. This is.
Not on the water, but on the land near the Narrows?
They're private property.
Hmm?
It's private property.
Could ask.
It's, you know, the thing is that, you know, when you, I don't know, I've been on the lake since I was born, you know, and in the summers and stuff, and you know, these topics are always, they're like timeless, right? They always come up and stuff. And like I said, most people do the right things. A lot of times it's just the weekend warrior that's out there, and of course people say they like to, well, people, you know, our lake is 2.5 miles long, 7 miles around. It's a very narrow lake. It's not like Candlewood where you got a lot of space. Even Bantam, you have, you know, it's more round and you have a lot more space. So as the docks come out, you know, and the docks can go out 40 feet, and then people put buoys out there and people put their little rafts out there. So it starts pushing everybody together. So it becomes very difficult, you know, and then it mostly really is just common sense if you're a boater out there with common sense. There's been accidents where people have died on the lake. You know, one of my father's best friends died on the lake with a boat. And unfortunate situation, wind and everything, and then we've had others. So by doing, you know, by just giving the police department, this is just to give the police department some more tools to have regulations that we currently already have that are needed to create safety for everyone on the lake. The little girl that's swimming out there when a boat comes by, or or another boat's coming around a corner. It just, you know, it's just to keep everybody safe. It's
Well,
not.
Stu, I think there's a lot more boats on that water now than it was 5 years ago, especially with the marina around there. You know, a lot more people bringing boats. You know, we had to put no parking signs for all the trailers that were, you know, blocking the streets.
Well, there is, you know, we talked to the former DEP guy that's in charge of the boat launches and stuff. One of the comments or one of the terms is, what is the carrying capacity? You know, we talk about like when you put a business in, right? You have to have so many parking spaces, right? How many parking spaces you're gonna have for your pizza place? How many parking spaces you're gonna have for your auto store? How many parking places for your restaurant? And so you make parking spaces to fit that venue. So now, at any lake, no matter which lake you go to, I guess the thing is that as all of the economies has gotten more affluent, you know, we're not in a 15-foot Crosby boat anymore that's like, you know, got to be patched up with fiberglass, or those small little Chris Craft boats that are, you know, maybe 4 feet wide. You're in boats now that have a beam of 96 inches, 8 feet across. Not 5 feet across anymore, not 6 feet across, but 8 feet across. Throwing all sorts of waves that are now going up and over walls. You know, docks are going like that. And so now you have more people that have the ability to trailer boats. I mean, look at our trucks, our cars. I mean, you know, and then the fishing boats. You know, the fishing boats that go out to fish with the little trolling motor, and then they got the 200 horsepower on the back to make sure we get to the fishing line first or for enjoyment afterwards. So yeah, there are a lot. 15 years ago, there was a study, there was 700 and something floating devices on Highland Lake residents alone. You had the 28 from the boat launch, you had 40 from the marina, and
Jet skis are another thing that's up there now quite a bit.
his jet skis are cheap boats, but they're like, what do they used to call motorcycles, pocket rockets?
Yes.
I mean, they have so much horsepower to them. I'm surprised not more people get hurt. But again, this doesn't change any regulations. It just changes the police department's ability to to help with issues that are arising, and as Josh said, to make sure that we have definitions in there.
Andy, at one time, wasn't the third bay closed off to motors and just sailing boats on Sundays mornings? Is that still in effect?
Oh, no, that went away, Jack. You're dating yourself.
Yeah, that is.
You're dating yourself. As a matter of fact, there's very few sailboats at the lake anymore. But they were down in Third Bay, and they put their little buoys out, and there were like 30, 40 sailing boats. If we went out skiing, we had to stay on one side or go up the other way, but, no, they're not there
It's
anymore.
not part of the regulations anymore.
No, there's no regulations. And for that, but outside the people going too close to shore, I mean, the other day I saw a ski boat, like the bathtub boats, and there was probably too many people in it, according to the numbers. I mean, they didn't sink or anything, so I'm assuming they're okay. But, you see that go by, and you see the other things go by, but I was at a neighbor's dock, and the jet ski was literally 20 feet off his dock, and his dock was only 20 feet long. And it was just, if the jet ski was out where it was supposed to be, it would have been fine. Nobody would have thought twice about it. Even if it was 100 feet out, I don't think anybody would have thought twice about it. But, that's, I think, why, you get the calls. I think that's why people are concerned, is because of that. It's not just, we get people want to go fast down the middle of the lake. I mean, I don't even think, that's an issue, I mean, it doesn't bother me.
Well, as you say, people who follow the rules, but something, maybe like that jet skier didn't know what the rule was.
Well, it's quite possible at the end of July that you wouldn't know what the rule was, but,
Ignorance is no excuse,
well,
right?
Correct. But we want to make, the lake safe for everybody, especially children, and, speed is not a good thing on the water. But, this is helping us to make the water safer for everybody.
But what do we need to do? Take action on,
I just had one question. Do we need to add anything to the ordinance on operating under the influence? I don't see a fine for that anywhere. So
State law,
state law? Okay, so it's a state fine.
we would do the same thing as a drunk driver.
Okay.
before we move any of this anywhere, I would like it sent to the person's name I gave you?
Yes.
At Deep,
Yes.
to have Deep review it before we keep moving on it.
so what do you need? Just an official, an unofficial? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, unofficial right now, to go ahead and go to Deep with what you've written, so that we can find out exactly where we're gonna be on this, because,
Yep.
Yeah, because this thing won't take effect until after the boating season's over with anyway. We won't
More or
get this
less.
done until September, and most
Yeah.
boats
We
will
won't
be
be
off.
this year.
but you do understand that the regulations are in force right now. This is just an easier read and maybe an easier way for the police to write a ticket. But the regulations are not different, the regulations are not changing.
Yes, my only question on that is pending a positive review from Deep, given what's already written within the amended ordinance, the draft ordinance, would you like me to go ahead and post a notice of intent
No.
before? Okay, then I'll come
And
back
the
to you
reason,
with that report.
and again, I don't believe there's a rush on this for precisely what Jack just said.
Okay,
The lake's already 72 degrees. People will be going back to school. People are traveling a lot. So by the time we pass this, it will be mid-September, even if we started doing things right this second. So I think
We
it's,
still have to make the tickets, we have it on the letter,
right.
Yeah, that,
go on to print, yeah.
and there's plenty of time to then start notifying people of how this will be enforced as an ordinance in 2022.
Correct, I would have a meeting with the Highland Lake Association.
Right.
Yeah.
But remember, the enforcement, to me, in my world, the enforcement shouldn't be any different. The enforcement should be the same with this ordinance or without it, because the regulations exist now. All it's doing is allowing him to spend a little less time writing a ticket. It does not change that if you're too close to shore, it does not change if your boat's too big, it does not change if you're over 45 miles an hour, it doesn't change, there's one more thing. If you go after dark, faster than 6 miles an hour after sunset, an hour before sunrise, and you're doing it in the middle of the night up there, it doesn't change. Nothing should change right now. Enforcement should be enforcement. Just my own personal opinion on that, and, and it shouldn't be any different. Shouldn't be more, shouldn't be less, it should be, if you're out there and it's happening, then it's happening. If you're out there and everything's fine, then it's fine. The 5 o'clock quiet hours on Sunday. You guys show up, everybody goes slow. You guys aren't there, there's 2 people, and everybody else is honking their horns at them and waving at them.
You've cited a lot of people this year so far.
Right, so at that point, once people realize that there's, enforcement on it, then maybe everybody will just be respectful of each other. Everybody will come and have a good time on the lake, and we won't have to talk about this anymore. But I just want to make sure that we all understand that the regulation is not changing, because we don't want people thinking that all of a sudden we just did something in response to anything, and that we don't want him to go out and get more people just because the regulation ordinance is just making it easier for a ticket to be written. Because I don't want that. Because it usually comes down on me sometimes, like I'm trying to do something. And so I just want to be really clear that this is, initiated that way, and it's not changing a reg.
That is correct.
No action required at this point on our part.
Right, so as long as we all think that language was okay, Josh will contact Deep with the chief. They could figure out with Deep, what we can and can't do, or what they would like us to do. Because the Deep person did say, well, we have to get it approved by the Deep boss, so.
You may not get a response from Deep for another month anyway, right? They're slow.
It all depends. It all depends. They're
We'll be
all,
optimistic.
they're all retiring at the state too, so that's Mike Payton just retired, so. So there you go.
I'm good.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a long night for you.
It's a long day.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so, we'll go back up top. Town managers report.
Very good, thank you, Candy. I will, of course, as usual, you have 2 weeks' worth of notes about meetings and work that I was able to accomplish. Those are already highlights, but I will highlight some of those for you right now. First and foremost, we continue to manage enforcement calls and other complaints as they come in. This is all a work in progress. We can't process everything at once, but we are moving through, especially on inland wetlands issues and so forth with the new enforcement officer. We've been making great progress, and I know that Pam Columby down in our planning and development offices is happy with the progress. We have, as I reported to you previously, hired a new budget analyst and grants manager. That individual will be starting next Wednesday, August 11th. Her name is Allison Pierce. She is a Winchester resident, and we're happy to have her on board. We are in the process right now of hiring a permanent enforcement officer and assistant town clerk. The assistant town clerk position is still posted online and is accepting applications in case anybody knows somebody who might be interested in applying. New information about the infrastructure bill is currently coming forward. So I did reach out to members of the ARPA advisory committee today to let them know that while we do have a lot of different projects that have been brought forward, a lot of different ideas for how that money could be spent, I think it would be wise at this point in time to wait and hear exactly what the infrastructure bill is going to do for localities. The answer might be nothing, or at least not a lot. but I believe that it's important for us to have a clear and educated understanding of where money can go and where we have sources of money to address certain issues in town. Last week I was able to, or I suppose now it was 2 weeks ago, I was able to hold a meet and greet with different members of the residents around town. Over 30 people attended. It was very productive. It was a great conversation. I had the chance to meet a lot of wonderful people, and I received feedback from that and was asked questions that have certainly helped shape the work that I've done over the past couple of weeks. So I hope that the issues that they had brought forward to are currently being addressed, and certainly I'll continue to strive to do just that. COVID-19 issues are being reviewed daily. As of right now, Litchfield County is the only county in the state of Connecticut that is considered by the CDC to be below substantial levels of transmission. Substantial is a new term that they're using, and it's a 4-step category. You're either in low transmission, moderate, substantial, or high, and right now we are in that moderate category. Because of that, the CDC does not strictly, by their metrics, recommend that individuals in public places like this wear their masks, but given the trend around the country and given the trend in Connecticut, we are recommending now in town hall and other public facilities that everybody, regardless of vaccination status, wear their mask, as we're doing here tonight. So I'm reviewing that daily with the emergency management director. I know that the superintendent of schools had 2 meetings tonight regarding school reopenings. If you have any questions about that, if you're getting questions from the public, I recommend that you talk to her directly so that she can give you the most current and up-to-date information. As of right now, my understanding is that masks will be required for students at least through September 30th, unless the governor changes his executive orders. But again, she is really the one who is collecting that cutting edge information about education. I did have the opportunity over the past couple of weeks to attend a meeting of the Northwest Connecticut Economic Development Commission, where they're moving on a number of issues and items, and certainly it's giving me knowledge and information from other towns that I hope that I can bring that knowledge and information here to put it to good use. The 508 Main Street committee members who decided to attend did have a walkthrough this past week of the 508 Main Street building, so they had the opportunity to see it firsthand. The condition of that building, if any of you would like that, it is a difficult walk in some cases just because of the terrain up to the back of the property, but I would be happy to do that with you. And we will be meeting again this coming Thursday. They'll get a little more information about that tomorrow to carry on that conversation. Winchester 250 met last Thursday, and I think it's safe to say that if there are any businesses or organizations that are interested in doing something surrounding the 250th anniversary, that they can reach out to a member of the Board of Selectmen or myself, and I'll pass it along in case you're interested in commemorating the 250th in some way. I think we'd love to continue to promote those opportunities. Business development remains on the rise. We have businesses that are moving onto Main Street that will be opening in the next couple of months. Certainly, I know that a lot of you have likely seen information about that in the newspapers, but businesses continue to come to our planning and development office to seek permits, to seek other permissions as they continue their development and seek ideas for development. And of course, as we just discussed, I have been working on developing ordinances. Not just this, but as we've discussed before, noise ordinance is currently between our town attorney and the chief of police for discussion. And we have other items, including a full review of our book of ordinances that's underway. All of the department directors within the town government are required to submit their edits on that subject to me by August 15th. So that's coming up very quickly, and we already have a pretty good record. I think there are only a couple at this point of departments that have not submitted their suggested edits and responses to questions that General Code as a company had posed to them regarding those ordinances. So that's a brief overview. Are there any questions that I can answer for any of you?
Yeah, just quickly, where was the 2 job openings posted?
They were posted in a number of different places. They were posted on the town's website. They were posted twice as required in the newspaper. They were posted on CT Hires, which I know posts to a number of different locations, including Discover Litchfield Hills, which now has its own job posting site, which I'm pretty excited about. For more specifics beyond that, I'd have to talk to Terry, who does those postings, but that's,
So we posted like we did with the finance position?
yes, we did.
Because did you post on Indeed?
Yes, it was posted to Indeed. Both of those positions.
Josh, your 508 Main Street group,
Yes.
is that just staff members
Um,
on that group?
No, it's not just staff members. We have a couple business owners, nearby business owners. We have members of we have a member of the Economic Development Commission. We have a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and we do have 2 selectmen who have been appointed as liaisons. As well, we haven't had an official meeting yet, but I know Candy's been on those items. For any selectmen who are interested in attending the meeting on Thursday, I will forward that email to you so that you have the information. It will be at 4:30 here in the
4:30?
Hicks room
4:30?
on Thursday. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Well, he won't run away, so if you have a thought later on, it's okay. So anything under correspondence?
I would like to highlight for everybody that there is a memo from Bart Clark in the Department of Public Works to me regarding the Sue Grossman Trail. Not a lot has been completed since you last saw an update, but they wanted to pass this along, make sure that you knew that it's very much on their mind. I did attend a meeting with them just this past Friday where they had a face-to-face conversation with representatives from Eversource. We met at the DMV site along that corridor, and they were able to specifically request from Eversource the right to make use of the space that Eversource owns along the corridor heading down to Torrington, and Eversource said that there's a very easy process that we can go through. It might take a little time, but it shouldn't be too many hoops to jump through. So progress is being made. I know a couple other meetings were being scheduled even today. I don't know what the dates of those are, but I will keep you posted as things move forward. But that's all I have on.
It's nice to see a construction start date of June 22, but that's probably unrealistic at this point.
I think if we can get the permissions from Eversource, I do believe it's realistic.
That'd be great. All right, 8, boards and commissions. Steve?
Okay, a number of appointments and items here. First of all, if you look at your chart, the first name is Civil Service Commission appointment by the town manager. And so I would move that we support the recommendation of the town manager to appoint Eleanor Gunn to the Civil Service Commission, permanent membership, term to expire in May of 2027.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. There's a question. Wasn't there somebody else that you were talking to before this?
Yes, that individual has withdrawn their name from consideration. I apologize if I didn't mention that in a prior update. It was my intention to.
All right, all in favor? Unanimous? Thank you.
Okay, and next I would like to move that we appoint Amanda Hill to the Conservation Commission, permanent membership, term to expire on May of 25.
Is there a second? Thank you, Linda. Any questions? All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you.
Next, I would move to appoint Charlene Lavoy to the Planning and Zoning Commission as an alternate member, term to expire October of 2026.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Jack, was that a yes?
Stay.
Abstaining? Okay, 4-0-1. Okay, next.
Okay, next, I would move that we appoint Kristen Dowler to the Soldiers Monument Commission as a permanent member, term to expire June of 2025.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you.
Okay, next, following our three-step process, I will nominate Renee Waldron to the Conservation Commission as a permanent member, term to expire in May of 2025.
So we are going to vote on her next meeting.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Next, I would move to nominate Gary Paginelli to the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission, permanent membership, term to expire May of 2025.
And we vote on him next meeting as well.
Yes, we will. And next, I will nominate Felix Vine as a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission to an alternate position, term to expire October of 2026.
And we vote on him next meeting.
Yes, we will. And that would conclude the boards and commissions report.
Anything else for that, anyone? If not, we will move to 9C, refunds as recommended by the Collector of Revenue, and I see you have two of them.
Yes, so the first set, this is number 21-53, topic C. And you will see that there are a number of different refunds that are recommended on the sheet that accompanies it. The total amount of the recommended refund for motor vehicles is $553.67, and some of those are because of overpayments, and some of those are because of changes in certificate. And then an additional $84.52 in overpayment from the tax department at, that's a real estate property where there was an overpayment of $84.52.
May I have a motion to approve? Thank you, Linda. Second? Thank you, Steve. All in favor? Unanimous? Is there another one?
Yes, there is another one. This is new business D, 21-54. And the difference here is just the amount and the reason for the granting of the refund. As you'll see in the accompanying page, the total amount for refunds, and I apologize, folks, I believe that there's a small, as you can see, the math is is presented oddly. So I just want to make sure I'm not giving you false information. Please stand by while I do complete a quick calculation.
Looks like you added motor vehicle and
Yeah, it does look
real
like,
estate.
it does look like that's the case, but just to confirm so you don't list the incorrect amount.
You got that one too?
Yes. So,
What, it's 11,004 or 11,005?
you've already approved, this is actually a totally different number that I'm about to give you. $10,920.30. The $11,004.82 that you see includes the motor vehicle from the other motion that was made. So the real estate that you've already approved in the amount of $84.52. The $11,558.49 includes all of those. You've already approved the $84.52. So the amount that you'll be approving on this is $10,920.30. I apologize for the math not appearing in a correct manner. But there are 3 duplicate payments that have been made in this case, all from the same community bank in Canton, Connecticut. And it's recommended that the total amount of $10,920.30 be refunded.
May I have a motion to approve? Thank you,
Make that
Steve.
motion.
Second, please. Thank you, Linda. All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Any selectmen's comments or reports?
I just have
Sure.
one quick thing. Actually, I should ask this to you, Josh, during your report. I saw in the paper the capital product sale.
Yes.
Have all the stipulations from Mr. Ronzullo been taken care of?
Yes,
with the tax
and we
bill?
held every piece of paper until we saw
Okay.
physical confirmation that all that was true.
Thank you.
So that means that with that building that we collected taxes that were due for every year that he
Yes.
owned it, so we got the taxes on that, and we got the $25,000 couple of years ago for that other piece of the mortgage on it, so.
That's right.
Anything else?
I wish they'd cut some weeds over there along that street, Willow Street, weeds, the old boat shop and that, and the Capital Products building, the weeds are just growing crazy along the road. I don't know, it's just messy.
Capital products that are around the building, they didn't do in front.
Well, but from Capital Products building to, what's it called, the case out of the bridge. There's a lot of weeds there. Can't do anything about it, it's private property, unless we,
So any other comments and reports? Anyone?
I just have a question. Josh, you had mentioned that the town attorney was reconsidering maybe halting blight. Can you elaborate anything on that? Has any decision been made? Is he, what's going on because of COVID?
Right, so the town attorney, right now, we have not moved forward with adding any new properties to the blight list since COVID began. The court hasn't been open, so even our filings to a point wouldn't have been processed and certainly wouldn't have been heard up to this point in time. Even now, the Superior Court down in Torrington is not hearing cases regarding these items. So, and if they are, they're remote, they're usually being deferred to later dates. So we are right now going through and revising the blight ordinance. That's one of the ordinances that I hope to have for you at your next meeting, if not in 2 meetings. But I have had the opportunity now to review with Kevin all of the things that he would like to see added to the ordinance. I can talk about this more, of course, when I bring it in front of you. But his concern is that there have been a number of challenges to blight ordinances in recent history in the state of Connecticut. And there is one in particular, and I can't remember the name of the municipality off the top of my head, so I won't say a name. But there is one municipality that recently had its blight ordinance entirely upheld by the state Supreme Court. So what he would like to do is incorporate as much of the language from that ordinance as possible, while still making sure that the primary nature of our blight ordinance remains to be true and present within the document. So we'll be making those changes. All of those changes actually already have been reviewed by myself, have been reviewed by Pam Columbia and others down in the land use office. And we'll be moving that forward for your consideration imminently. The only reason it wasn't brought forward to this meeting actually is because we're waiting on a couple additional changes from Kevin. I expect to have those this week.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Anything else?
Candy, is there any point in the condition of the Delta variant growing that we might go back or have to go back to Zoom meetings? On Zoom?
Well, I mean, it's all possible.
Have you thought through that?
Well, yeah, just where Josh is paying close attention to it. Every day we get new information. Tonight, nobody told us to wear masks, and we all wore a mask. We never said to do this, right? So we all just know that to be safe for the, each other and the community, because I believe all of us are vaccinated as well. So, so if we need to, we will. But, like tonight, all the other people that came had masks on too, so. So until, what is it, like just being flexible and seeing what pops up for data?
Yep.
And following recommendations.
But Josh, would it be up to individual boards and commissions to decide whether they want to meet virtually or in person? Or at this point, is the requirement still to meet in person but to be wearing masks?
There's actually no requirement at this moment in time to be meeting in person. If there's any board or commission that wishes to meet remotely, we can work with you as the town administration to make sure you have what you need. And it's their prerogative as of right now. In the event that it becomes so extreme, I'm sure that the governor would issue executive orders surrounding further requirements to allow for more remote access into meetings. But as of this point, there's nothing barring us from moving to remote access should we need it.
Actually, in the email I forwarded you today, this afternoon, right in there, it gives, the executive orders already have regulations or rules that you do if you're gonna go remote. So right now, we could be, like we are now, we could be hybrid, some remote, some here, or we could be fully remote.
And that would be up to us to decide that.
Well, right now, it's going to, like I said, you know, Josh is gonna have to weigh everything that's coming in from the state, and then he'll give us the heads up, and then we'll figure out what we're gonna do. I mean, if we had a meeting with lots and lots of people here, then I would be a little bit more worried than I am right now, but, I think everybody has to do common sense, you know? So we'll see, we came back and we went out, I think at appropriate times, so.
Fair enough. Good.
I mean, if any one person has an issue, you know, with coming in, you know, let us know and we'll figure out how to do the remote part with you. Can certainly do that. All right, Steve,
Move we adjourn.
Second.
all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Okay, we'll see you next time.